Let's take a £250,000 rental property generating £1,300 per month. 5 years ago, that might have looked like a very strong buy-to-let deal. But today, with interest rates and higher costs and new regulation, the same deal can feel very different indeed. So the question many people are asking is simple. Is buy-to-let still worth it in the UK? This question is being asked more now than at any point in recent years. Interest rates have increased, costs have risen, and regulation is changing. Each of these affects how buy-to-let performs. So it's not surprising that people are reassessing. Let's start with what has actually changed. Mortgage costs are higher than they were a few years ago. This reduces monthly cash flow. And at the same time, operating costs, maintenance, compliance, and management have also increased. And the new legislation adds further structure to how properties are managed. All of these changes reduce your margins. However, it's also important to look at what has not changed. There is still strong demand for rental property and people still need housing. And in many areas, supply remains limited. That underlying dynamic is still in place and it continues to support the market. The biggest shift is in cash flow. Deals that once produced stronger monthly surplus are now much tighter. For example, a property that might have generated £500 a month may now only generate £250 to £300 a month. That doesn't mean the deal doesn't work, but it changes how it feels to own the property. The key difference today is the margin for error. Previously, deals had more room to absorb changes, and now that margin is much smaller, which means mistakes have a larger impact, and analysis needs to be more precise. Buy-to-let has not disappeared, but it has become more selective. Landlords who focus on strong fundamentals, such as good locations, realistic numbers, and solid tenants, can still make this work. The weaker deals have become more exposed. Strategy now matters much more than it used to. It's not just about buying property, it's about buying the right property. The structure, financing, and cost control all play a much larger role. This is where many outcomes are decided. Over the long term, property has always been a slower, compounding investment. It's not about short-term gains, but about consistent performance over time. This has not changed, but expectations may need to adjust. Regulation is now a bigger factor. The Renters Reform Bill changes how landlords operate. That adds structure, but also reduces flexibility. For some, that increases complexity, and for others, it raises standards. There is also a wider impact on the market. If some landlords choose to exit, supply may reduce, and if demand remains strong, that can put upward pressure on rents. So changes don't happen in isolation. A common mistake is thinking in extremes, either that buy-to-let is no longer viable or that nothing has changed. In reality, the truth sits somewhere in the middle. It still works, but under different conditions. A more useful way to think about it is to ask, does the deal still work with today's costs? Is the cash flow realistic? And does it feel resilient and not stretched? These questions matter more than broad opinions. In practice, this means being more selective, looking more carefully at numbers, and allowing for less margin for error. It's a more disciplined approach, but often a much more sustainable one. Buy-to-let is not dead, but it has changed, and success now depends more on how well you analyze and structure deals. The fundamentals still matter, just more than before. Understanding how the market is changing puts you in a stronger position. Because in property, adapting is part of the process. This is the practical landlord.